Hello, everybody, and welcome to the channel. I'm joined today by the famous Duncan Rhodes.
Oh, what a strange world I live in. Hello.
It's good, isn't it?
I don't think I'll ever get used to it.
No, well, it's the price of fame. The price of fame. We're going to be chatting to you about a whole slew of projects that you're involved with. But before we get stuck into that, for people who have not yet come across Duncan, who is he and where did he come from?
So I am, yes, I'm Duncan Rhodes, and I have a very strange career where I've been able to teach people how to paint miniatures. In that I used to do it for Games Workshop as their YouTube channel appeared. I was the presenter on the initial painting videos, and I've found it very fulfilling and continued this on over the years. So yeah, what I do is host painting tutorial videos that explain in as down-to-earth terms as possible what things to do to achieve results like what you see, in photographs and things, to help people gain confidence and gain skills and grow and enjoy their hobby more.
Which is what it's all about at the end of the day.
Certainly is. Certainly is.
It's not supposed to be a chore. It's supposed to be your fun time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So post Games Workshop, then obviously the Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy kicked off. You want to talk us through how that came to be and what that was like, essentially starting out by yourself without a backing of a company sort of setting things up for you?
Terrifying.
that was going to be my suggestion. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I worked for Games Workshop so I worked in retail for 4 years, and then I worked in the studio for 10. And this involved my time in the TV department. And when I was there, the chap who set up the TV department, who was the real driving force behind the painting tutorial videos as they developed and grew, this chap called Roger. He was the guy who got me in as his presenter for the painting video idea that very much he had, and trained me to do it. And we ended up working closely as a team. And because at the time, as this all started, the TV department was a very much unknown department in the company, and so no one's really paying attention to it. So it's quite Wild West times, and we were able to pursue what we really wanted to do. And I think we both gelled really well because we both had similar ideas as to what it's all about, and that we wanted to break down barriers of people as they got into the hobby. And we went through some quite tough times together, and because we were just in this dark, soundproof room for hours on end all day, we got to become very good friends. So Roger always had a dream of having his own business, and something he always wanted to do, and he didn't want to have. He tried at various times when he was younger and stuff, and he didn't want to have regrets about never really going for it and wondering what could be. And we realized that we were in a position where we had the skills and the expertise. We had the capital to be able to buy cameras and things, and we had the reach as well because people were interested in what we were making. Because whilst they'd see me and talk about this being me, it was really the team of the two of us all this time. So we left together to go and set up the Painting Academy. And the title of it, Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy, was on Roger's insistence because people were searching for me on how to paint things.
Yes.
And we knew in going we were throwing away our careers at Games Workshop, like it was going to end there. So it was scary because we didn't know if it was going to work. And I very much still enjoyed my job at Workshop, and I loved the people I was working with. And I was like, it was really nice being around these people all the time. But the key argument that swayed me to think that this was the best thing to do was that I didn't want to regret not having tried and was wondering what could happen, which very much was the same argument that got me to apply for the TV job in the first place. So yeah, it was very scary because we didn't know if it would work. We didn't know if we could get an income. We had a certain amount of time which we'd budgeted that we could go without the website being open and without taking any money in.
Yeah.
And we gave it our best shot, and I think it's paid off. I think.
Yeah. I mean, one or two people have probably heard of you now, so that's probably happened. Yeah. When it comes to painting under camera, then, because I've tried to do it once, and it's a mare is the most polite way I can put it.
Yes, it's challenging.
Did you have to come up with a new way to sort of present your workflow to make it both viable and still at the same time instructional for people? Because I don't think people realize how often line of sight can be blocked when you're attempting to paint something or maneuvering a miniature into position to reach a particularly tricky part. So have you had to sacrifice anything in your painting style to actually make the tutorials viable, or was it just a case of set up until you find one that worked for you?
Well, Roger had a very clear idea of what he wanted out of things, in that he wanted to make it so that when we had the close-up shot of painting the actual model, he wanted to make it as close to my eye line as possible so the viewer would see what I'm seeing. Now, it's impossible, of course, to actually get directly where my eyes are seeing, because I wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. And there were times when ideas were proposed of like, kind of just look at the screen and paint based on that. But you lose all depth perception and it all goes horribly wrong. So what we resolved on was having a camera that's effectively just poking over my shoulder. And Roger then set about training me to use it without really thinking about it. So it's like driving a car. You know, when you first try, there's all these things and you can't handle it all at the same time. But once you get used to where everything is, you start to do it instinctively without thinking. And we went through a relentless training period of about 3 months, I think it was, where every day we were going in. And I would do exercises where I'd so I have a little screen where I can see what the viewer's seeing, but I wouldn't be allowed to look at it. I'd have to bring my hands into the position of holding it up to that camera and then see how close I was and keep on doing it again and again and again until I gain the muscle memory where I'd be in the right position without thinking. But also he had to train me to be in the understanding that he needs me to give him options of where he can cut when he edits it all together. So I'll talk to cameras in various positions and stuff, but it's all instinctive at this point of trying to allow each camera to be giving some sort of information that he can use to make a good narrative for it. So there was quite a lot. When it comes to the actual how I'm painting it then, I don't think there was any sacrifices, because I did have to learn how to hold my hands further away from my face, you know, because I used to have my hands right in front of me, or I'd be really crouched over on the table to stop any shaking and stuff. I had to learn to steady my hands from a distance. So that took a bit of practice. But the real important thing, you know, the star of the show is that miniature and how it's being painted. So when it comes to how it's done, there are no compromises on that. There never have been. And this is what I mean by Wild West, because I'm sure there might have been someone cross about how the model goes through the ugly phase halfway through, right? But we were able to show that and show that that's true. And this is a really good reassuring thing then for someone at home, because when they're going through their phase and the model doesn't look how it's going to, seeing that mine also looks the same as theirs at that point is totally reassuring and gets them to press through that part and get it to completion. So everything was always around understanding that the tuition and the explanation has to be as true to life as possible, and everything has to fall in line beyond that. And yeah, I think Roger was very good at working it out when it came to that.
Yeah, nobody wants to draw Mickey Mouse in 4 steps, draw a circle, draw 2 more circles, fill in all the detail.
Goodness no. Well, that used to be a bit of a running gag when I was working in White Dwarf, in that you'd have in the magazine, there'd be the 4 stages. And stage 1's your base coat, stage 2 is your washers, stage 3 is layers, stage 4 is lying. You know, it was just considered a bit of a joke, because there was a slippery slope where the paint would want to make that each stage look as nice as possible, especially that last stage look as good as possible. But then that doesn't make sense in terms of a guide, because it's not being honest about how things should look. Like the model should look messy partway through. So I'm glad we're able to stick to those principles.
Yeah, I think it comes across as well, because there's nothing worse than seeing, if you see warts and all, you know where you're going, you can see where you can progress to. If people get an unrealistic idea of a tutorial, because it skips steps or it misses out those things or cleans them up off camera, then when they're trying to follow that home, quickly become disillusioned, and at that point people drift away and look for somewhere else. So the realism, I think, is key in many respects.
Yes, I would feel terrible if a little white lie in a video resulted in somebody getting frustrated and not being able to fulfill, what they want to achieve with the hobby. So, we're very, very particular about sticking to our guns and this sort of thing. Now, Games Workshop, we were able to, because we very much started it all. And in the academy, there's no one demanding anything of it other than us, so we can totally stick to those principles as we go along.
So obviously you've built up quite a large collection of tutorials on the Painting Academy side already, but you go beyond the videos. Do you do a lot of live tutorials with people at conventions or things like that, or is that something that hasn't crossed your path yet?
Well, we have done. We did at LVO. So I used to do it with Games Workshop, and they'd send me to like Adepticon and Nova and stuff, and I'd do live painting demos there. And with the Academy, we did do that in 2023, January 2023 at LVO. And what we've found is that whilst it's cool doing that tuition, you are isolated from everybody for a good few hours in doing these things. And there's also the price for entry in doing it. Whereas in the last LVO, what we did instead is we jumped in with Trans Atlantis Games, who we'll talk about in a moment, and they had the paints set out on a table, and people could just sit down and paint stuff. And I could just loiter around and give people advice on their painting as they were there. So if someone had particular questions, I could give them that tuition in person. But it meant then that they wouldn't have to pay for it. And also we could get lots more people coming in to do it. So we found that format works, and I think we're going to explore more of that.
That should be a lot of fun. It's always nice being able to reach out and press the flesh.
Oh, yeah. It's lovely talking to people in person. It's really magic.
So speaking of Trans Atlantis then, so TAG, how did you get connected with them? And how did the development of the Two Thin Coats paint range come about?
Well, it's easy looking back in hindsight to assume that this was always going to be the plan when we left Games Workshop, but it really wasn't. And whilst Roger and I loved the idea of making some sort of hobby products, the paints came out of the blue one day when Bob Watts, who is the owner of TAG, just sent us an email with a proposition. And it was a little bit Dragon's Den-y. You know, it was like a cool pack about all the things that he was proposing to do. And we had to read through it, and he had all the numbers on there and all the ideas and things. And he sent along some samples of some little paints and things. And basically what he wanted to do was, Trans Atlantis Games was a new company, but Bob's been in the industry for like forever. He's, if you've been in the hobby for any length of time, you no doubt will have done something that he's been involved in. He's always been running parts of companies or companies himself. And this one was the first time he was doing his own thing. And he wanted to license us to make a range of paints and hobby products. And we were like, yeah, that's cool, but we'd really like to be able to be involved in the actual genesis of this product. Choosing how we can create like a bit of a system to help people get into it. And Bob's reaction was absolutely, like, I don't really think he expected it, but he completely embraced it, because it meant then that it suddenly started hitting a formula rather than just being some random colors from a color wheel. When we proposed the idea of doing triads, it then starts setting how many paints there'd be, and it all kind of built from there. And it was brilliant, because what we really love about TAG is that they, I suppose the core message is they want to make my perfect hobby paint. So they were letting me test everything and give feedback on everything. And I don't mean like just on me. I'm open for feedback from all the people who are trying it at the time. And the color selection, Roger and I would really debate as to which colors were picked for the first 60 to make sure that it gave a broad range of things. But whatever we proposed, TAG would give feedback if they had it, but they wouldn't question choices just in a way that might undermine it. So like they never ever said to me, I know you like that base, but could you pick the other one because it's cheaper? Yeah. They just let me go. So I ended up, without realizing it, I picked all the expensive stuff, right? I'm like, I want an emerald green that's going to be really smooth and cover really well, really quickly. And so, after the base was chosen and after we presented with the color that we wanted, chemists went and made it and stuff and presented it to me. And there were a few rounds of feedback and adjusting it and changing it until it got to the one that we green lit. And yeah, it turns out it's full of expensive stuff, but I didn't know. I didn't know until it came out. So that's the thing that makes us really happy about working with them, in that they have this integrity to wanting to make the best hobby product possible, and they're never trying to get us to undercut our standards for saving a bit of money.
Yeah, not having to sacrifice then. It's interesting because I think a lot of people don't realize just how much chemistry, I suppose, goes into the actual development of a paint. Be it the pigment choice, the binder choice, the medium choice. Metallics are probably the easiest example, because you can get a nice sparkle off mica, but mica is very chunky. It's like glitter in a suspension sometimes, whereas the more expensive aluminium pigments are so much finer, give such a much more fluid finish, but then the cost goes up. I mean, how many, not to get into massive detail, but how many different sort of mediums and pigments and the like on average would you say you had to go through for various things?
Well, originally I was presented with 4 black paints and 4 white paints, just labeled A, B, C, D. And I was just told to just play with them and see what I thought. And so I chose out of that the one that I thought would be good. And we had it, so in the triads, we had consider it a shadow color, a midtone, and a highlight. And I picked one base for the shadow midtone and one for the highlight. But as it turned out, the base I picked for the shadow midtone was so good that it would serve the highlight purposes too. So fairly soon into the process, we switched so all of them were on the same base. This is one that just has a really good combination of things, like leveling agent, for example. There's a far higher proportion of leveling agent in that mix than there is in your average acrylic paint, which is why when you use them, it comes across as being so smooth. You get a silky smooth finish to it and doesn't show brush marks. And each of these would then change depending on what pigment load is put into it. And then the chemist would have to go to town fine-tuning each one to make sure, as I get given a sample, it's like, yeah, well, this one's now having this side effect. And you do something to mitigate that. And what I never really thought about till this process was that every chemical you have in the paint has a side effect, which can be detrimental to the paint. So then you've got to put in another chemical to counteract that, which will then also have side effects. And this means that the actual formula composition can be immensely complicated. And when you realize that, you stop licking your paintbrushes. I don't want that stuff in my mouth.
I will never stop licking my paintbrush.
So the ones for the regular acrylics were one formula, then the washes were another, and then the metallics were another. And there's minor variations in the metallics to get the best out of particular colors. But that's the general, each color is slightly different in its formula, but that was generally how many bases we started out with.
So with the paint range then, obviously a lot of heavy lifting went into wave 1 because it was the initial. Do you find that with the subsequent second and third wave then that the testing was faster because you had already ironed out some of those wrinkles, or were you still putting as much heavy lifting into the more current ranges then?
It was definitely easier. And I mean, there have been fine-tuning things that we've done as time's gone on just to improve the formula of things, like minor things. The colors have stayed the same, but just getting a bit of better performance out of it has just been part of the process. But when it came to wave 2, I mean, with wave 1, I should say, it seems like 60 colors are a lot, but when you've got to try and create a like its own ecosystem of paint colors, effectively, like that was the target, it actually gets quite brutal choosing what colors you're going to have in there, especially if you're doing it in the format of triads, because you might, if you just had 60 paints, all right, we'll have one khaki, but this means now we need 3 khakis. So it becomes quite ruthless. So we had to be really careful about what we picked there. But then that meant that we knew what triads we could add in the future. And so we knew that if it would go well, then wave 2 could quite easily follow on from that. And that's what happened. When wave 2 came along, we very much knew what we wanted to go for. And there was a bit of adjustment based upon feedback and people asking us for particular things. Like the glazes were something that we added in. But any that then got shaved out of wave 2, we just kept, and we knew that we could use those in wave 3. So the colors are becoming a bit more niche, a bit more specific as we go along. But it's still based upon the same formulation, and the chemists now understand what we're looking for. So they, at an extent at the start of the process, can predict what sort of properties we're going to be looking for. So it cuts out a few of the rounds of testing. So it's definitely got smoother as time has gone along, with a few occasional exceptions. There's some colors that offer challenges. Like orange, for example. It's very strange why orange is such a difficult color to get a paint that's not muddy, but then covers well. It's very weird because you think it'd just be like red and yellow together, right? But there's more to it than that. Yeah. Anyway, I couldn't explain it. Yeah. So that's the chemists.
Anytime anybody has to put white on a model, and the amount of companies who have struggled with white over the years because the pigment needs to be so dense, I suppose, will know. And that's why a lot of painters end up with, they could have a range of one company and then they go, I use everything except they're white. And trying to develop something that will work for hobbyists. We're an exacting bunch at the best of times.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone has their favorites. I think everyone mixes across ranges. But at least in doing this, I was able to be in a position to say, I want as good a quality white paint as is possible to make. Like, how can we do that? I wanted to do these things. And then I had the space to be really picky about stuff. Mm-hmm. So in that, we ended up with a really nice selection of paints at the end of the day.
Yeah. Speaking of selection, and the current wave brings the range up to close to 200 now between the triads, washes, glazes, the lights, and the metallics. Is there anything else that you're looking to add to the range in future, or is this going to be the comprehensive selection going forward?
Well, we have some ideas, but I think I'd get in trouble with Tag if I talked about things too much. We have thought a bit about maybe offering more options beyond it being a triad for each one, but then things might get really complicated. And one of the things we want to be at the very core of all of it is that it's easily accessible for new people to get their head around how to use colours together. So we don't want to overcomplicate things, but then there's always room to add more colours. There's always extra stuff. And we certainly do get people saying, could you do this specific colour? They email us in about it, and we just make a note of it. So there's lots of possibility in future.
I'm looking for the facings on a very specific but small niche Napoleonic army. Can you
exactly?
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. I want the exact green of the 95th Rifles. Yeah.
Good luck, Skipper.
Yes.
Obviously, you're talking about making it accessible for new painters, and part and parcel of that is because they are acrylic as a range. Water-based acrylics are just, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because whenever I started painting, it was enamels.
Yes.
But would you ever segue into the likes of enamels or oils? Because there's some interesting bits and pieces that can be done with that, and it's a different style of material to use. Or would you keep the focus on the acrylics?
I wouldn't say there's plans for doing that now, but never say never, because I could certainly see lots of interesting paints added to the range, again, in that approachable way that we committed to doing, which I think could expand people's horizons. So there's a possibility of it in the future, but I can't say for certain just now that we're going to do.
So the third wave has had a very successful Kickstarter launch.
Yes, thank goodness.
Will people be able to get their hands on that before it hits retail? Are you going to have a pledge manager or the like for it?
Indeed, we are. Yes. So it's going to appear on GameFound shortly after the Kickstarter concludes. So if there's any people who missed out on the Kickstarter campaign and want to get hold of the paints, you'll be able to through that, and you can get them at a really good deal. It's sets of a whole wave. There's also wave 2 and wave 1, but you get the whole group together at a great price. So yeah, if you're looking to expand your paint range with a load of high quality paints, you'll still have a chance.
Always handy to have. Apart from the paints, then, any other big projects that you're planning for the Painting Academy itself?
Oh, well, that's a good question. So in the Academy, we have a fairly new section about courses, and we did one there, which was the fundamentals about painting, and we've got plans in motion for doing our next course there. So that's going to be exciting, but I don't want to spoil the surprise of what it is yet. We also have something else, which is just at the very start of its journey, and I think that's going to be really cool. But again, I can't spoil the surprise just yet. But yeah, we are doing stuff. So
terrible tease.
I know. I'm sorry. But I guess I did work in Games Workshop marketing, so I am aware of what spoilers can do.
Well, that is true. If people are looking to keep tabs on you, then is the Painting Academy the best place to go to see what you're up to?
Yeah, so the best place to find us is DuncanRhodes.com, which always feels weird to me because it's, my name is an address, right? But this is Roger's insistence that we do this. And on there, you'll find our membership website, which is full of loads of painting tutorial videos that are committed to helping you improve your hobby and learn skills and gain more confidence and things. We have well over 300 videos there now. And these cover case studies on particular miniatures from, all your favorite games, right? Awesome Warhammers there. We've got historicals. We've got things like Flame of War on there. We've got the Elder Scrolls, Ridiculous, all these different subjects. We also have techniques on there on specific things, like training you to do edge highlighting with various like exercises that you can do for it, or it might be on wet blending, for example, or things like that. We're also on the usual social medias. So we're on Facebook, Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy. On Instagram, you can find me at Duncan J. Rhodes. These are the best places to see what we get up to on a week-to-week basis. So I definitely encourage people to go and engage with it and show us pictures of the stuff you've painted, because we always love seeing that.
Fantastic stuff. Are you going to be at any of the big conventions this year in case people can find you out and about? Indeed, we are. We're going to be at Salute in April, and we're going to be at the UK Games Expo as well in June. And both of these will be on a stand. So please do come along and say hello. And it'll be really nice to talk to you and to find out about what stuff you like and what you're painting and what your latest game was like and things like that. But yeah, we'll be around. Fantastic stuff. Well, hopefully I will see you at both of those, because I should be there myself. And I'll be able to bend your ear a bit more in person. Yeah, it'd be great to say hello. Right, folks, there you have it. If you want to keep tabs on Duncan, you know where to go. If you've any questions for him, please feel free to drop them below, and we'll pass them across and see if we can get you an answer as well. Until next time, take care.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.